Hello, my name is Jaroslav Procházka. I would like to share with you some parts of my journey in Česká, spořitelna, when I was leading somehow without any reports, 150 product owners, and we were doing a lot of nice things, but mostly I will focus on the part that is somehow connected to management and convincing the management that discovery makes sense and it has a value. Because you know what? If you do discovery, it makes when you have a delivery, what it makes if you do discovery, it makes slower, right? That's the perception of management. If we start to do discovery, it will slow our deliveries. The teams will spend much more time with doing all this crappy stuff that we don't know because we know what are the features we want to deliver. So that's the story. And I will introduce, that's not all. I will somehow introduce the context. Because there is quite a lot of important things, I will try to be quick with the introduction and then to talk more about the topics. So it was a change of the organizational structure, somehow connected with the way of working. They call it agile transformation. Some of you could know it as a so-called Spotify model that never existed, but anyways, McKinsey is selling it, so it has to exist. And as I said, I had no direct reports, but I had to serve somehow 105 and later on it was 150 product owners. So the only thing I could use was value and influence. I had to provide some value to those people, and that was the only key I have to them. And what we've done in the beginning. In the beginning, it was quite weird discussions because we started with the things like, okay, are you really a product owner? Because there was 150 people with that role, with that name. But the question was, what is your product? If you are a product owner, just describe me what's your product. Many of them were actually component owners, thinking about their small components, software stuff, forgetting totally about the processes, about the bigger context, about the connections, about the customer, even, surprise, right? Product owner not thinking about the customer. So we cleared somehow in the beginning who is really the product owner. And another surprise was that the most or typical product managers or product owners, product managers, were those people that didn't know about this. These were these business owners. In the jargon, it's called tribe lead, the one who owns the business. So we realized actually that those people I need to work with don't know that they are product owners and they don't want anybody to work with them. So great beginning, right? And another very important thing was the experience and the habits. So if I said discovery and I asked, okay, who's doing discovery? Sometimes there were quite good product owners or product managers, I have to say. There were a few of them in digital product teams, like things like George, you probably know if you are a client of Česká, spořitelna, so you know George. Some others who do the things like digital mortgage processing, so these things. But it was like, guess how many? Like 5, 10, 15 out of 100, 550. Later on, when we started these discussions with those real product owners, they wanted to start, but nobody knew how to start. So that was beginning, quite nice beginning, right? So what we've done, or actually to the context as well, there existed something that was called quarterly prioritization process. Actually, it was quarterly business review or something like this. And we had actually 3 perspectives. That was actually very good because we can start to talk about the value of the initiatives. Still imagine these were not product teams solving customer needs. Still these were teams delivering features. But we started already to talk about some perspectives, what customer can perceive as a value. So we had a client impact measure. That was how many clients is impacted. There were teams solving tiny stupid things, costing us like 10 millions, having impact on 300 customers, 300 clients out of 10 millions or 5 millions, So only having discussion about, okay, what's the impact on how many customers? Are we talking about thousands, hundreds, thousands, or millions? it started to somehow scratch the surface in their mind and saying, okay, maybe this is not the best idea, we should solve. So that was perfect. Second one was, we call it bank or client impact. And that was already something that was connected to testing, experiments, and stuff like this. Actually, this was more to the solution, not to the problem part. But in the solution part, we started at least to do something like prototyping and validating the prototypes or value perceived from the prototypes. Here we had some original scale, and it was something like I didn't even recognize the problem, the change, the delta. So what the hell are you testing with me? And the best one were like, yeah, it impressed me. I really love it. I would like to try. And the last one, the most tricky one, you see it's covered. So it was revenues. So estimated but validated revenue impact 12 months since we deployed. And it was the most tricky part. I will get back to this one, but actually we had there something like scale again. You don't need to estimate exact number, but rather the scale. Are we again talking about hundreds, thousands, millions, tens of millions, billions, stuff like this. So that was context. So we could use this one and take it as some basis. And we had to do also some cleanup in our craft. And the cleanup was sort of product lifecycle principles. Because if I said like, look, if we talk about product teams, do we know what the product teams are? Do we know the basic principles? How do they behave? Do we have some limitations or some anchors in which they can be autonomous and self-managed? And these were like really questions from the different universe, you know. The answers was like, what autonomous? They have backlogs for 2 years, you know. So what autonomy are you talking about? So these were the things we started to clear up as well. And actually there was a lot of co-creation together with other crafts. I had a great colleagues, two ladies, Katka Tomášková and Monika, I forgot the surname now. Maybe you follow them if you like products. So really great ladies in Česká spořitelna. And they did already great job. They already had some connections to the management. So I started to use these shortcuts. And we did a lot of common joint work, like you see here some guidances, some checklists and things that can be used simply in the beginning. If I'm not doing any discovery at all, how can I start? What can I do now? What could be step number one? You know, these really stupid ideas, but they were there. And we had a lot of great case studies. I found those people in the company that did already some of the discovery efforts, and I started to present this as a case studies, because if somebody said, look, it's possible in our company, it was harder for them to argue that it's impossible to do this. It's impossible to do the change. Our manager wouldn't want it, you know. So I pick up the most impossible cases that I found. So it was from core systems. You know, they did discovery in core systems, not in digi products. I took some things from payments and stuff like this. So those more technical ones where it was less possible to expect that it would work there. And what we started to do was hundreds and thousands of hours of hands-on workshops. So we took the initiative and I just coached them and asked, look, what data you have, what the data is saying. Do we have any insights? If not, what we can do as a small step. And we had such a session. So these were the beginnings. And we did also some validation because we wanted to know what are the gaps. So I was the first one who approached some of the product managers after 10 or 15 years, who asked there about, about something that's not delivered. So how do you like your job? Is it manageable? Is somebody helping you with your development? Is somebody providing you any support? So quite many of them were very surprised that somebody is asking these questions. You know, after 15 years, they are in Česká spořitelna. But I wanted to show something that these two graphs showed some discrepancies. They said, look, we are having regular discussions like analysts, UX, CX, product managers together. So sounds like discovery, right? And of course with IT. But then when we discussed about discovery activities, it looked quite different. So we somehow wanted to map what's the situation, and we also did something like simple or quite easy competence mapping, and we realized that there are some numbers, quite low numbers, that the discovery is really the biggest problem that we have. The rest of the competencies are somehow working. 3 was somehow in the middle, and 3 was actually what we expected or targeted to. So it was 1.2, 1.8 regarding the discovery. So it was really a problem, and I had a data that can be shown to the management, and it started the discussions. And there was the last thing that I wanted to show. The initial discovery started to somehow happen when we created all these checklists, the maps, how to flow through the discovery, some of the guidances, hints. There was this low and high fidelity prototype, so they were always waiting for high fidelity prototypes in the initial phases of the discovery. So when I saw this one, I was totally shocked. You know, that they were waiting like 3 weeks to create something when even the hypothesis was not yet validated. So we started to clarify even these small stupid ideas like, look, use only low fidelity one, or even don't use any prototypes if the need is not yet validated or hypothesis is not yet proven or denied. So these were the things that we started to create, and actually the feature factory mindset started to somehow change, and teams started to think more about the goals and about the value that could somehow fulfill the goals. And I wanted just to pick one really important thing. Here, teams started to bring all the ideas, data, and those things connected to the customer to daily ceremonies. So we had a demo, and some developer asked, look, what was the business goal? What was the goal of the sprint, so to say? But what was the business goal? What we were expected to deliver and why? And actually, can you show us again the customer data? What was the pain point we wanted to solve? And it was developer, and actually product manager was saying, sorry, let me check. And he didn't know actually. So this started to become the step when we somehow get to the minds of the team members that these small snapshots need to become part of the daily ceremonies. And they started to show the data and all other things. And we still continued with all the case studies, good examples, checklists, and they really created a movement in the company, and people started to ask. And now comes the time for the management part. As I said, these ladies, these Czech ladies, they were doing a really great job already with management. They had their small management window, and through that management window that took, I think, like 20 minutes once a month, they could somehow show the reports that were showing, actually, here are numbers. I just need to cover them because this is under NDAs. So they showed how many initiatives we are having in the progress. How many of these initiatives are labeled as CX, that means impact on the customer. Here were already really nice numbers, or surprising numbers. It was, okay, the numbers I said, okay, right, 1/2 of the initiatives were not client initiatives. So my initial question was, okay, what the hell it is? Why we are doing this if they don't have any impact on the customer? And they said, you know, all that stuff like compliance, technical parts, and so on. And I said, okay, technical parts can be validated. Compliance can be validated. You know, GDPR. Who of you has experienced these stupid dinosaurs implementations of GDPR? And I said, okay, yeah, exactly. A lot of things can be done manually, and only when proven can be later on automated. This is a really nice example. So we started those discussions, and ladies said, yes, you're right, these are nice questions. We will bring another numbers showing that are not those CX initiatives, and we will put an exclamation mark. Like, what the heck is this one? Let's elaborate also those. And later on, they had also these 2, or actually 3 parts of the funnel. So the next one is, we know what's the client impact. We have validated the client impact. We have the number. Again, you see the funnel is much smaller. And finally, the one who are confirmed, and the last one who are really with the big impact. So the ratio from the initial one was something like, if I said this was, for instance, 1,000 initiatives, that's the number even. So if this was 1,000, I'm not saying it was. So the impacted clients, the client thinks that were validated, a proven need, and client says, look, the impact is really huge, I like it, I would use it. These are creative formulations, it wasn't like this. I'm just saying this in my words. So it was like 100 from 1,000. Okay. So my question was, great, good job, but what the heck is the rest? And what are we doing with these that are not labeled, that have low impact, and so on? So I sit with guys from how they are called, controlling data and so on, and we started to dig in the numbers. That was really great experience. If you work for a bank, you know what I'm talking about. But finally, we realized to create such a dashboard version 1, and we started to visualize the stuff. So the blue, dark blue, is something about initial discovery and expected value and what we are expecting. And actually, it was also showing how many things we do have and how many things are validated. I will get back to this part. Second, the middle part, the blue, the light blue, is more about the efficiency. How efficient we are in doing the stuff, doing the validation. How efficient are we in the deliveries? How quick, for instance, is the discovery? Some parts are covered because these were quite MBA numbers, so I just covered the last one. And the last one, this was a really nice part where I spent almost all my ages. So it was about the value, really measured value, delivered value. And what I wanted mostly to show was, look, this is what we are promising, this is what we do expect. So let's put it together with the numbers later on and show whether these numbers somehow match or if it is totally different ratio. And what the numbers started to show. In the first version, we wanted to somehow grow the number of tested, validated, tested, and discovered ideas. So it was growing, it was perfect, the trend was great. But what, it's not visible here, we updated the second version, I cannot find the numbers. So here, these are the numbers, what we promise. This is what we promise to the company that we will bring, that we will generate. And in the second version, it was also a curve and it was showing a trend. And actually, there were surprising numbers showing, it wouldn't be surprising for you, that if we are doing more discovery, so the value of those promised initiatives is lower, is actually dropping, right? That's quite common because you are doing less stupid ideas. You are stopping them very easily in the beginning of the discovery phase and so on. So I just brought these two numbers and came to, yeah, that's what I said, and came to key stakeholders. And I started to ask the question. So the first one, I just said, look, if we have this QBR, that was this prioritization, if you remember, that quarterly prioritization. So I just said, look, if we do quarterly prioritization, what if we use that value dashboard? Actually, it has also the details. You could click on it, and per your team or business domain, business area, you could see all your initiatives. With those numbers, you could see what's validated and what's not. Teams hate this perspective because it was on one click really visible that you had like 100 ideas and just 2 are validated, you know, so they didn't like it. So we need to somehow mask it and make it more tempting for them. So we just created I think the traffic lights or something like this. So actually everything was red. It was even worse, you know, but they liked it. So that's what we created, and I started the discussions with QBR team whether it can become the part of these discussions that happen. Because usually, imagine it's like marketplace, and they just start to discuss like look, this initiative is very important for me, and I need your cooperation. And if I had another one, so I just could say, look, this one is also important, and I need your cooperation. And if you have another one initiative, so you could ask for my cooperation. I don't know if I will have time, but still these were like the discussions. I need it, you need that one. And so impact on clients, I mean, how many of those, then the number, money, what it should bring, and then the delta, how big the delta is, how big difference is seen by the customer. So what if we just get one number out of this, and we'll start to compare the numbers? And we started to building these things in the discussions of those real product managers. These are the triangles, right? What I said already in the beginning. And I also taught agile coaches how to use it, where to use it in what ceremonies, how to visualize those stuff. And we helped all the teams also with the template, how to calculate easily these things. Like for instance, if you already know it, if you have some numbers somewhere, just pick them. It will help you fill it here. So we created such simple, I don't know, even if this could be called business case, simple Excel, really like 3 fields, and we just put it here and we just got the number as a result. So these were the second discussion. They started to use the numbers that somehow describe the ideas. They were somehow validated, somehow not. And there was the number showing whether it's validated or not. And you could sort it out, and later on we could work with this. And last thing that we did was, so we are much better in initiatives discovery effort. We are doing much more validation on much higher percentage of the initiatives that we have. The number of initiatives is dropping. That's great because we are stopping the stupid ones. But the value of those initiatives is dropping as well. So why the hell we are doing them? And I explained the idea. I explained that it has to be part of that QBR process for the validation sorting, showing what's validated, not validated. If you are having full backlogs, so just be pretty cruel or precise and just get rid of those not validated ideas because they are not yet validated.